exposing the chaos in Britain's lost 11 days. Imagine waking up one morning and finding out that 11 days have simply vanished from your life. It sounds like a plot from a science fiction novel, but this is exactly what happened in Britain in the year 1752. The calendar we rely on to mark our days, plan our lives, and celebrate our seasons was suddenly and dramatically altered. Today we're time traveling, not through space, but through history. We're diving into a period when the very fabric of timekeeping was being rewoven. The story of how Britain lost 11 days is a fascinating tale of astronomical miscalculations, religious disputes, and the relentless march of time. Our destination, 18th century England. Picture a world without the conveniences of modern technology, where the rhythm of life is dictated by the rising and setting of the sun and the changing of the seasons. This was a time when the calendar was not just a tool for planning, but a crucial guide for agricultural and religious activities. Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride. The journey to understanding why Britain had to erase 11 days from its calendar is filled with twists and turns. It's a story that spans centuries and involves some of the greatest minds of the time. Imagine a world where the calendar is off, not just by a day or two, but by 11. This wasn't just a minor inconvenience, it was a significant disruption to daily life. Farmers, who relied on the calendar to know when to plant and harvest their crops, were thrown into confusion. Religious festivals, which were tied to specific dates, were suddenly out of sync, not just by a day or two, but by 11. This discrepancy was the result of an error in the Julian calendar, which had been in use for over a millennium. The Julian calendar, introduced by Julius Caesar in 46 BC, was based on a year that was 365.25 days long. However, the actual solar year is slightly shorter, at approximately 365.2422 days. This is the strange situation Europe found itself in. Over the centuries, this small discrepancy added up, causing the calendar to drift out of alignment with the seasons. By the 16th century, the calendar was 10 days behind the solar year. This drift had significant implications, particularly for the timing of Easter, which is based on the spring equinox. For centuries, they used the Julian calendar, but it had a small error. This error, though seemingly insignificant, had profound effects over time. The Julian calendar's misalignment with the Earth's orbit meant that the dates of important events like the equinoxes and solstices gradually shifted, but it had a small error. It didn't perfectly align with the Earth's journey around the Sun. This misalignment caused the calendar to slowly drift, creating a growing gap between the calendar date and the actual position of the Earth in its orbit. By the 18th century, this gap had grown to 11 days. It didn't perfectly align with the Earth's journey around the Sun. This tiny error over time became a big problem. The calendar was no longer a reliable tool for tracking the seasons, which had serious consequences for agriculture and religious observances. This tiny error over time became a big problem. By the 1700s, the calendar was out of sync with the seasons. The drift was causing significant confusion and disruption. Farmers were planting and harvesting at the wrong times, and religious festivals were no longer aligned with their traditional dates. By the 1700s, the calendar was out of sync with the seasons. Easter, tied to the spring equinox, was drifting. This caused confusion for agriculture and religious celebrations. The need for a more accurate calendar became increasingly apparent. Easter, tied to the spring equinox, was drifting. This caused confusion for agriculture and religious celebrations. The need for a more accurate calendar became increasingly apparent. Something had to be done to correct this growing discrepancy. This caused confusion for agriculture and religious celebrations. Something had to be done. The solution came in the form of the Gregorian calendar, introduced by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582. This new calendar corrected the error in the Julian calendar by shortening the average year by 0.0075 days. Something had to be done. The solution? Adopt the more accurate Gregorian calendar, already in use by most of Europe. The Gregorian calendar was designed to keep the calendar year more closely aligned with the solar year, ensuring that the dates of important events like the equinoxes and solstices remained consistent. The solution? Adopt the more accurate Gregorian calendar, already in use by most of Europe. But catching up meant erasing 11 days. This was a drastic measure, but it was necessary to bring the calendar back into alignment with the solar year. But catching up meant erasing 11 days. The transition was not without controversy. Many people were confused and upset by the sudden loss of days. Some even believed that their lives had been shortened by 11 days. Despite the initial confusion, the switch to the Gregorian calendar ultimately brought the calendar back into harmony with the Earth's orbit, ensuring that the dates of important events remained consistent for centuries to come. In 1751, the British Parliament passed the Calendar Act. This was a monumental decision that would alter the very fabric of daily life for everyone in the country. The Act was designed to correct the inaccuracies of the Julian calendar, which had been in use for centuries. The Julian calendar was slowly drifting out of sync with the solar year, causing significant issues for agriculture, religious observances, and daily activities. The British Parliament decided it was time for a change that would bring the calendar back in line with the seasons and the rest of Europe, which had already adopted the Gregorian calendar. This act declared that September 2nd, 1752 would be immediately followed by September the 14th. This meant that 11 days would simply disappear from the calendar. Imagine the confusion and chaos that ensued. People were bewildered, trying to grasp the concept of losing 11 days of their lives. Businesses had to adjust their records, and farmers had to rethink their planting schedules. It was a time of great uncertainty and adjustment. Poof! 11 days vanished, gone in a flash. It was as if time itself had been stolen. People went to bed on the night of September 2nd and woke up on what should have been September 3rd, only to find it was now September 14th. The concept of time, something that had always been a constant, was now fluid and unpredictable. This sudden change left many feeling disoriented and uneasy. You might think, no big deal, just a calendar change, but imagine the disruption. People were confused and frustrated. They had to adjust their schedules, appointments, and even their personal lives. Birthdays, anniversaries, and other significant dates were now different. The loss of 11 days was more than just a minor inconvenience. It was a major upheaval in the way people perceived and interacted with time. People went to bed on Wednesday and woke up on a Thursday, 2 Wednesdays in a row. This bizarre experience left many questioning the reliability of time itself. How could something so fundamental be altered so drastically? The change affected everyone, from the highest echelons of society to the common folk. It was a shared experience that brought about a collective sense of bewilderment and curiosity. The change wasn't just about dates. It had far-reaching implications for society as a whole. Scholars and intellectuals debated the merits and consequences of the new calendar. Religious leaders had to adjust their liturgical calendars, and legal systems had to account for the missing days. The ripple effects of this change were felt in every aspect of life. It shook people's understanding of time itself. Time, once a constant and reliable measure, now seemed malleable and uncertain. This shift in perception had a profound impact on how people viewed the world around them. It was a reminder that even the most fundamental aspects of life could be subject to change. Time, once a constant, felt manipulated. The very fabric of reality seemed to be altered. People began to question the nature of time and its relationship to their lives. Was time something that could be controlled and manipulated, or was it an immutable force that governed the universe? These questions led to a deeper philosophical and scientific inquiry into the nature of time itself. It was as if the universe had skipped a beat. The missing 11 days became a symbol of the fragility and fluidity of time. It was a moment in history that reminded people of the ever-changing nature of the world and their place within it. The Calendar Act of 1751 was more than just a legislative change. It was a profound shift in the way people understood and experienced time. The missing days sparked widespread confusion. People struggled to adapt. Legal documents, financial transactions, even birthdays were affected. Imagine explaining to your landlord you only owed rent for 19 days in September. The public outcry was immense. Many felt cheated, robbed of their time. They believed the government had stolen 11 days of their lives. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some claimed the government would charge back taxes for the missing days. Others feared the world was ending. The calendar change became a symbol of government overreach and sparked fear and unrest. The cry, "Give us back our 11 days," echoed throughout Britain. This outcry was not just a simple demand, it was a powerful expression of the people's frustration and confusion. The change in the calendar, which resulted in the loss of 11 days, was a significant event that disrupted the lives of many. People were bewildered and felt cheated out of their time. The streets were filled with angry voices and the air was thick with tension. It was a moment in history that highlighted the deep connection people have with time and how any alteration to it can cause widespread unrest. It became a rallying cry for those who opposed the change, a symbol of defiance against the government's interference in their lives. The protests were not just about the lost days, they were about the broader implications of government control and the imposition of new systems on the populace. People from all walks of life joined the demonstrations, united in their opposition. The streets were alive with the sound of marching feet and the sight of protest signs. It was a powerful display of collective action and resistance. Myths and legends sprung up around the missing days. Stories were told of strange occurrences and mysterious events that took place during this period. Some believed that the lost days were a time when the natural order was disrupted, leading to supernatural happenings. These tales were passed down through generations, becoming a part of the cultural fabric. They served as a way for people to make sense of the inexplicable and to keep the memory of the lost days alive. Some whispered of secret societies formed within the lost 11 days, hidden from the eyes of the world. These clandestine groups were said to have taken advantage of the confusion to further their own agendas. Meetings were held in secret locations, and plans were made under the cover of darkness. The idea of secret societies added an element of intrigue and mystery to the already enigmatic period. It was a time when anything seemed possible, and the boundaries between reality and fiction were blurred. Others claimed ghosts roamed freely during this time, their presence unnoticed and unrecorded. The lost days were believed to be a window of opportunity for spirits to wander the earth. Haunted houses and historical places were said to be particularly active during this period. Ghost stories from this time became a popular topic of conversation, adding to the sense of unease and mystery. These tales of spectral activity were a way for people to express their fears and to give voice to the unknown. The calendar change was a defining moment in British history. It marked a shift in the way time was perceived and measured. The adoption of the Gregorian calendar was intended to bring Britain in line with the rest of Europe, but it also caused significant disruption. The old Julian calendar had been in use for centuries, and the transition was not smooth. People had to adjust to a new way of marking time, and this was not an easy process. The change had far-reaching implications, affecting everything from agriculture to religious observances. It highlighted the power of time, not just as a measurement, but as a social and cultural construct. Time is something that we often take for granted, but it plays a crucial role in our lives. The calendar change brought this into sharp focus, showing how deeply ingrained our sense of time is in our daily routines and cultural practices. It also demonstrated how changes to the way we measure time can have profound effects on society. The discussions and debates that arose from the calendar change were a testament to the importance of time in human life. It showed how even the smallest discrepancies can have a ripple effect, altering our understanding of the world around us. The loss of 11 days may seem like a minor adjustment, but it had significant consequences. It affected everything from personal schedules to historical records. The ripple effect of this change was felt in many areas of life, highlighting the interconnectedness of time and society. It was a powerful reminder of how even small changes can have far-reaching impacts, shaping our perception of the world and our place in it.